Have you ever been working on something and had this realization that you need someone else's approval or to get someone else's opinion about your work before you can progress? Well, you have just discovered what a stakeholder is. My name is Rob, and I am a pure instructor and pure project manager, and I've spent my career working on projects. And a huge aspect of working on projects is working with stakeholders. These are the individuals or groups who are interested in or impacted by the project you're working on. So in this video, we're going to dig into stakeholders to understand what they are, why they're so important to projects, and to share some ideas and tips on how you can better manage them. Let's jump in and see what it's all about. At its simplest, a stakeholder is anyone who is interested in or impacted by the work you are doing. Depending on the project, this will be different groups of people or different individuals, but every project has at least one stakeholder. You. The project manager is a stakeholder of the project, so even a very small project, making a piece of art for yourself or improving your home, will impact you in some way. That said, most projects have more than one stakeholder. For example, if I am improving my house, I might have to get some kind of approval from the local government to make the improvements. Or maybe I'll have to reach out to a contractor to provide supplies or expertise that I need. Or maybe even I'll have to talk to my neighbors because I'll be moving big supplies around. We can, however, break stakeholders into two general groups. We have internal stakeholders, and these are individuals who are on the project. They're working with you as the project manager or the project team to get the work done. This might include internal team members, it might include managers who are helping keep things going, or even departments in your organization that are related to the project. We also, however, have external stakeholders. This will be individuals or groups outside of your organization who are impacted or interested in the project. Common examples include things like contractors you might hire to come in and do work, or maybe vendors who provide supplies or information to your project, or governmental agencies who will monitor your project or make sure you are following procedures or something else. Here's a quick analogy to better understand stakeholders. Imagine you're putting on a concert. You'll have people who want to buy tickets. They're interested in the concert to hear it. But you'll also have people who are setting up the stage to make sure everything works, your internal stakeholders. You'll have the musicians or the performers who are also internal stakeholders, but also people from the county or local government to make sure everything's safe who are interested in it. The point here is stakeholders will impact your project in some way, and it's our role as project managers to be aware of them so we can best meet their needs. Now, stakeholders do matter to projects, but in different ways. Stakeholders might do things like provide resources or expertise, or maybe even approval to do something. So we want to make sure we understand those things so we can get that approval or get that expertise if and when we need it. Stakeholders might also define what a successful project looks like. The executive who finds the budget or initiates the project will have a clear vision of what it should be doing. So you're really going to want to understand what that is so you can meet that. They might also be able to influence the direction of the project. That stakeholder may decide to not use a certain technology or not engage with a certain vendor for some reason, and this can impact your ability to manage it. So by understanding their needs and the importance they play in the project, you can better manage the project. Now, there are many challenges that can come up with stakeholders, but there are a few common ones in my experience. One is simply a lack of interest. Sometimes you'll have a stakeholder on a project, maybe even a team member, who isn't engaged and doesn't really care about the project. Maybe they don't understand why it's important, or maybe they have more important things going on and they just don't want to do it. This can make it challenging because you need to engage with that stakeholder and get them moving in the right direction so at least they can get out of the way instead of blocking things. Personally, I find just approaching that person and trying to understand why they're not engaged can be very helpful. Then I can share why it's important for them to help approve something or help do the work to hopefully get them moving again on the project. Another very common challenge with stakeholders is they'll have a conflicting idea or opinion about the project. Typically, I see this with more senior stakeholders where we have executives who don't think a project should be done and try and block it or stop it. But I've also seen this occur with stakeholders closer to the project, with team members who don't think we should go down a certain path or use a certain tool to get the project completed. This can also be challenging to manage because suddenly you have someone who is actively causing challenges for the project. And at worst, this can result in the project becoming stuck or even canceled. So in this example, I like to meet with that person, but also talk to people around them to try and understand why do they not like the project? What is it causing them to decide they want to raise their hand and say, no, we shouldn't do this? And this is where my ability to communicate really comes in, but understanding why they conflict with the project can allow me to find ways to move forward to hopefully at least get them to become neutral and to stop trying to actively cause challenges. Stakeholders, though, might also have ideas about what the project should do that are outside the scope or what the project is intended to perform. For example, if I was building a playground in the local park, some of the local parents may decide it needs an additional swing set. Well, we only have budget to make one, and it would be great to have a second, but we can't change that. And this scope creep, this addition to scope, can make it challenging to manage everything. This is another example where I might need to talk to other stakeholders to convince them to stop pushing for this scope creep, or I'll just work with them directly to understand why they think it's necessary, and then to try and turn them around so they understand that we need to stay within our scope. So while they can be challenging, stakeholders can also be very positive and beneficial to projects. So here are a few tips that I have come across and used that help me manage my stakeholders. The first is to identify who they are and identify them early. Part of planning your project and thinking through what should be done should include identifying stakeholders, especially ones who you think may push back or make the project challenging. Here, you might examine stakeholders and determine what is their level of interest in what I'm doing, and how much power do they have to try and stop it or make it challenging. This can then give you a very clear idea of those individuals who are interested and have a lot of power should be folks you should be looking at quite a bit, but there will also be individuals who don't have much power and aren't very interested. So while you do want to communicate with them and manage them, maybe not as closely as that first group who can really make things challenging. Next, ask yourself, what are their interests? What do those stakeholders care about? This will help you understand more about them and also help you plan for could they cause challenges. But also when you interact with them, it'll give you insight into what they might find interesting or how you can approach them. Regular communication is also critical. We want to make sure our stakeholders feel supported and that they are never surprised about our project. It does take time to understand their preferences. Some may like weekly meetings, some may prefer an email, but make sure you are regularly reaching out to make sure they understand what's going on, especially if there's a blocker or some challenge coming up. And if they do raise a concern, make sure that you respond as quickly as you can. This isn't to say you should drop everything all the time. However, you do want them to feel like they're supported and that you are responding to their needs. If they feel like you are ignoring them, they can make things challenging for the project. So by responding promptly, you help avoid that particular challenge. So those are stakeholders, individuals or groups who have an interest or are impacted by your project, and they are in every single project. Again, depending on the size, they may be more or less challenging to work with, but keep your eyes open for those stakeholders in your projects. And I'm curious, take a minute to think about projects you might have worked on and the challenges you've had working with stakeholders, whether it's identifying them or if they've gotten in the way, and share it down in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories about your stakeholders, and if you have challenges, let us know. Maybe we can help you out a little. Of course, if you like this, please like and subscribe. That really helps us out. It lets us know what you're interested in learning and lets us make better content like this. So thank you again for learning a little bit about stakeholders, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in one of these again soon.